Hey guys, we often hear the name Genghis Khan and immediately picture a ruthless conqueror, a barbarian leading hordes of screaming horsemen across the plains, leaving only destruction in his wake. We imagine vast, epic battles, cities consumed by fire and mountains of skulls, a whirlwind of chaos unleashed upon the civilized world. History paints him as either a monster or a military genius, often overlooking the world that created him and the sheer, brutal realities of the life he forged into an empire against almost impossible odds. The story is often told through the lens of the settled peoples he impacted, focusing on the end result rather than the arduous, decades-long process of survival, unification, and relentless effort that preceded the vast conquests. The rise wasn't instantaneous. It was a slow, grinding, and deeply human struggle against a harsh environment and fragmented society. If you enjoy pushing past the easy narratives and the dramatic legends to uncover the gritty, complex, and often uncomfortable truths about how history actually unfolded, focusing on the human effort, the environmental pressures, and the mundane realities behind the grand titles, maybe consider supporting the channel. Small contributions go a long way in helping acquire research materials, translate sources, and dedicate the necessary time to crafting these detailed, immersive stories. But, as always, please know there is absolutely zero pressure or expectation to do so. The most important thing is simply that you are here, joining this global community of curious minds, ready to settle in and explore the past from a different perspective. It truly is an amazing feeling to know these stories are resonating with listeners all around the world, connecting us across vast distances through a shared interest. So please feel free to drop a comment below, letting us know where you are tuning in from tonight. It is always fascinating to see the reach of our community. Alright, let us prepare now for our journey onto the vast windswept steppes of 12th century Mongolia. Find your comfortable spot, turn down the lights, and minimize any distractions around you. Let your chair, sofa, or bed fully support your weight, releasing any physical tension you might be holding. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose, feeling the air fill your lungs completely, noticing the brief pause at the peak, and then exhale slowly and completely through your mouth, letting go of the thoughts and stresses of your day with the outward breath. Allow your body to relax, your mind to quieten. We are not here tonight for a rapid-fire list of conquests or a strategic analysis of cavalry tactics. We are simply here to take a slow, immersive, sensory walk through the harsh world that shaped one of history's most impactful figures, focusing on the tangible realities of nomadic life. We are going to push past the image of the unstoppable conqueror to find the vulnerable individual, the harsh landscape, and the relentless struggle for survival that defined his early life. We are looking for the origins of Genghis Khan, the rise of the Mongol Empire. You are cold, bone-chillingly cold. It is the first and most constant sensation in your young life. You are a male, perhaps 8 or 9 winters old, living on the vast, windswept steppe of what will one day be called Mongolia. It is deep winter. The land is a featureless expanse of grey, frozen earth and windswept, dirty snow under a vast, pale, indifferent sky. The wind is relentless, a razor-sharp gale that cuts through your worn animal skin clothing, finding every gap, stealing every scrap of warmth. You huddle deeper into the felt-lined yurt, your family's portable circular home, pressing close to the small smoky fire smouldering in the central hearth. The air inside smells thick and greasy, a mixture of burning dung fuel, unwashed bodies, drying meat, and the pungent aroma of the family's sheep and goats huddled just outside the felt walls for meagre shelter. Your father, Yesugei, a minor chieftain of the Borjigin clan, is away. He left days ago to hunt, or perhaps to raid a neighbouring camp. The lines between the two activities are often blurred in this harsh land, where survival is paramount. Your mother, Holun, works constantly, her hands chapped and rough, tending the fire, mending worn clothes with bone needles, preparing the meagre rations of dried meat and fermented mare's milk, airag, that sustain you. Life is precarious. Resources are scarce. Alliances between the scattered nomadic clans, Tatars, Merkits, Kerits, Naimans, Mongols, are fluid, shifting constantly, often cemented by strategic marriages and just as easily broken by perceived insults or the desperate need for horses or grazing land. Loyalty is fierce, but often extends only as far as immediate kinship or sworn brotherhood. Betrayal is common. Existence is a constant struggle against the elements and against other humans. One day, riders appear on the horizon, dark figures moving swiftly against the snow. They bring your father back, not riding proudly, but slumped over his horse, gravely ill. He speaks in gasps, relating how he shared a meal with Tatar rivals, who he believes poisoned him out of old enmity. Holun tends to him, her face grim, applying poultices, murmuring prayers, but the poison, or perhaps a sudden sickness, is too strong. He fades quickly. With his last breaths, he entrusts you, Temujin, your given name, to care for the family, a heavy burden for such a young male. His death is not just a personal tragedy. It is a catastrophe for your small family unit. Without his leadership, his alliances, his protection, you are vulnerable, terribly vulnerable. Almost immediately, the other families loosely allied with your father abandon you. Led by the Taichiud clan, relatives who see an opportunity to consolidate power, they declare that Yesugei's widow and young offspring are too weak to manage the clan's shared herds, too burdensome to support. They hold a brief dismissive council outside your yurt. You watch from the felt flap, shivering as much from fear as from cold, as the Taichid leaders announce their decision. They are taking the majority of the horses, the sheep, the carts, the essential wealth and means of survival for any steppe nomad. They are leaving your mother, you, your younger siblings, and your father's other junior wife with almost nothing. They ride away, driving the herds before them, leaving your small group utterly alone on the vast frozen plain. It is effectively a death sentence. Abandonment in the harsh steppe of winter means almost certain starvation or freezing. Your childhood ends abruptly in that moment of betrayal. Survival is now your only concern. Your mother, Holun, refuses to despair. She's resourceful, fierce, a woman forged by the hardships of steppe life. She gathers you and your siblings close, her presence a source of fierce, protective warmth against the biting wind and the gnawing fear. You leave the relative shelter of the winter camp, now rendered useless without the herds. You become foragers, scavengers, living on the absolute margins of existence. You move constantly, seeking shelter in shallow ravines or behind rocky outcrops. Hoylun teaches you and your brothers, Kasar, Kachun, Temuge, how to survive. You learn to identify edible roots hidden beneath the frozen ground, digging them out with sharp sticks or your bare, numb fingers. You learn to trap small rodents, marmots, field mice, using simple snares made from horsehair. You learn to fish in the icy rivers, patiently waiting for hours with a crude bone hook and line, hoping for a single small grey fish to supplement your meagre diet. Hunger becomes a constant companion, a dull ache in your belly that never fully disappears. The cold remains relentless, seeping into your bones, making sleep difficult even when huddled together for warmth under shared animal skins. You learn the harsh calculus of survival. Every calorie counts, every scrap of fuel is precious, every moment of inattention can be fatal. You see the desperation in your mother's eyes, the fierce determination that keeps her moving, keeps her finding just enough for her family to endure another day, another freezing night. This period forges in you a deep resilience, a profound understanding of loyalty and betrayal, and an unshakable will to survive against all odds. Despite the constant hardship, moments of fragile stability occur. You form a close bond with your siblings, particularly your full brother Kassa, known for his strength and archery skills. However, tensions also arise, especially with your older half-brother Begta, born to your father's junior wife, Sochigul. Resources are incredibly scarce, and competition even within the family unit is fierce. One day, after a rare successful fishing trip, you and Kassar return to find that Begta has taken the single fish you managed to catch. This seemingly small incident, magnified by chronic hunger and the simmering resentment over status, Begta, being older, might claim leadership, escalates tragically. Fueled by anger and perhaps Holand's frustration with Begta's perceived selfishness, you and Kassar confront him. Reframe. The confrontation happens away from the camp. You and Kassar approach Begta, who stands alone on a small rise, silhouetted against the setting sun. There is a tense exchange of words, gestures become heated. Later, you and Kassar return to the yurt, faces grim, without Begta. Holand sees your expressions and understands. Her reaction a mixture of grief and grim acceptance of the harsh necessities of survival and maintaining family unity under your potential leadership. This act, born of desperation and the brutal pragmatism of Steppe politics, further isolates your family but solidifies your position as the potential future leader, albeit one already marked by ruthlessness. Your precarious existence is shattered again when the Taichiuds, your treacherous relatives who abandoned you, return. They see you, Temujin, growing older, stronger, potentially becoming a threat, a future rival who might seek revenge for their past betrayal. Their leader, Tagutai Kiriltuk, decides to eliminate the potential problem. Riders appear suddenly, surrounding your small camp. You try to flee, hiding in a dense thicket, but they find you. They capture you easily. To humiliate you and prevent escape, they place a kanga around your neck, a heavy wooden yoke or stock that pins your arms. You are now their prisoner, dragged back to their camp, subjected to taunts and neglect. You are fed scraps, forced to endure the shame of captivity among those who destroyed your family's standing. But the resilience forged during your years of hardship serves you well. You watch, you wait, you endure. One night, during a feast when the guards are distracted by feasting and drinking erog, you see your chance. You manage, perhaps by striking a momentarily careless guard, with the heavy wooden kanga itself, to create a diversion. You slip away into the darkness, still encumbered by the heavy yoke. You run, stumbling through the moonlit steppe, the rough wood chafing your neck raw. You know they will pursue you at first light. Desperate, you find a river and submerge yourself in the icy water, hiding among the reeds near the bank, only your head above the surface, breathing shallowly. You remain there, shivering violently in the paralyzing cold, for hours, listening as the frustrated search party thunders past on their horses just yards away. Finally, when the sounds of pursuit fade, you risk emerging from the river, teeth chattering, body numb. You are found near collapse by a member of the Saldus clan, a male named Sorgan Shearer, who was sympathetic to your father. He recognizes you despite your wretched state. Risking the Taichiud's wrath, he takes you in. He smashes the kang from your neck. His family hides you for several days, perhaps concealing you beneath a pile of wool fleeces in a cart when the Taichiuds come searching again. They give you food, warmth, and crucially, a horse and directions. This act of kindness, this unexpected loyalty in a world of betrayal, makes a deep impression on you. It reinforces your understanding that alliances, even seemingly minor ones, can be crucial for survival. You escape, riding away, determined now not just to survive, but to reclaim your father's position and build something stronger. Your first step towards rebuilding your life is to seek out Berta, the female to whom you were betrothed by your father years ago, before his death. Marriage alliances are the bedrock of power and security on the steppe. You travel to the camp of her father, Daeseshen, leader of the Ongarat tribe. Despite your impoverished state, you arrive almost alone, possessing little more than the horse you ride. Daeseshen honors the arrangement made with your father. He welcomes you, perhaps seeing the potential in your fierce determination, or perhaps simply adhering strictly to the traditional codes of honor. The marriage takes place. Berta brings with her a significant dowry, including a luxurious sable cloak, a rare and valuable item that represents a tangible piece of wealth, something you can potentially leverage. You understand immediately that you cannot survive alone. You need powerful allies. You take the valuable sable cloak, perhaps the only truly luxurious item you possess, and you make a strategic journey. You travel to the camp of Togrul Khan, leader of the powerful Karate tribe. Togrul was an Anda, a sworn blood brother, to your late father, Yesugei. You present the sable cloak to him as a magnificent gift, formally reminding him of his bond with your father and requesting his patronage and protection. Togrul, perhaps moved by the gesture, or seeing a potential pawn in his own complex political games, accepts the gift and acknowledges you. He agrees to take you under his wing, effectively becoming your overlord and protector. This is a crucial step. You now have the backing, however conditional, of one of the most powerful figures on the steppe. Your fragile new beginning is almost immediately shattered. While you are away, perhaps hunting or visiting Togrul's camp, your own small camp is raided. The attackers are the Merkits, another rival tribe harbouring an old grudge against your father, Yesugei, who had stolen your mother Holan from a Merkit warrior years before. The raid is swift and brutal. Reframed, the Merkit horsemen descend upon your camp suddenly. There is shouting, chaos, the thundering of hooves. Yurts are overturned, possessions scattered. When the dust settles, the camp is wrecked. Several attendants are missing, and crucially, Berta is gone. The scene focuses on the aftermath, the overturned carts, the scattered belongings, your horrified expression as you return to find the devastation and realize Berta has been taken. You are devastated, but your grief quickly turns into cold resolve. Losing your principal wife is not just a personal tragedy. It is a catastrophic blow to your honor and your fragile political standing. You must rescue her. You immediately ride back to Togrul Khan, invoking his promise of protection, pleading for his help in retrieving Berta. Togrul agrees, perhaps seeing an opportunity to assert his dominance over the Merkits, or simply fulfilling his obligation as your protector. You also reach out to another figure from your youth, Jamuka, a male from the Jadaran clan, who had become your Anda, your sworn blood brother, during your childhood wanderings. Jamuka, already a charismatic and rising leader in his own right, agrees to join the rescue mission. The alliance is formed. A three-pronged force gathers. The campaign against the Merkeets is meticulously planned. Scouts are sent out to locate their main encampment. The forces gather: Togrul's experienced Karaite warriors, Jamuka's loyal Jadaran followers, and your own small band of relatives and retainers. Reframed. The scene shows the combined forces converging at a pre-arranged meeting point on the steppe, a vast sea of horsemen under a wide sky. You, Togrul, and Jamuka are shown conferring together, perhaps studying the terrain, pointing towards the horizon. The focus is on the scale of the gathering, the shared purpose, the tension before the action. The ensuing events are swift, reframed. The next scene shows the aftermath. Your forces are shown returning, leading captured horses and herding small groups of Merkit non-combatants. Crucially, Berthe is shown riding beside you, safe, perhaps wrapped in a warm cloak you have given her. The focus is on the relief of her recovery and the successful outcome of the alliance, not on the preceding conflict itself. Bertha is rescued, and your honor is restored. However, the rescue mission also highlights the growing rivalry between you and Jamuka, two ambitious young leaders whose paths seem destined to diverge. After the successful rescue of Bertha, your reputation grows. Your small band of followers begins to attract others, warriors disillusioned with other leaders, families seeking a strong protector, individuals drawn to your proven resilience and determination. You and Jamuka, your childhood Anda, initially camped together, leading your combined followers as one large group. However, differences in leadership style and ambition soon create friction. Jamuka tends to favour the traditional aristocratic structure, relying on noble lineage and established hierarchies. You, shaped by your harsh upbringing and reliance on personal loyalty, increasingly promote males based on merit and demonstrated skill, regardless of their birth status. This attracts capable individuals, but also breeds resentment among those who feel their inherited rank is being ignored. The inevitable split occurs, subtly at first. According to some accounts, it is precipitated by Bertha, urging you to establish your own independent camp, recognizing the dangers of remaining subordinate to the increasingly powerful Jamuka. One night, your followers quietly pack their yurts and belongings, and under the cover of darkness, you lead your people away from Jamuka's main encampment, establishing your own distinct group. Jamuka pursues, and the rivalry escalates. Reframed. The scene shows two large, separate encampments now visible on the steppe, smoke rising from their fires under a vast sky, emphasizing the division. Riders are seen moving between the camps, suggesting tense communications. Later, Jamuka and you are shown facing each other across a symbolic distance on the plain, perhaps with only a few retainers each, their postures indicating disagreement rather than open hostility. The focus is on the parting of ways, the end of the brotherhood. This split marks the beginning of a long and complex series of conflicts and shifting alliances across the Mongolian plateau. You are now a Khan in your own right, but one among many rivals. Your primary goal becomes the unification of the Mongol tribes under your sole leadership, believing this is the only way to end the constant, destructive infighting that plagues the steppe and ensures perpetual vulnerability. This involves a decades-long process of diplomacy, strategic marriages, political maneuvering, and inevitably military campaigns against those who refuse to submit. You meticulously build your power base, rewarding loyalty absolutely and dealing decisively with betrayal. a lesson learned hard in your youth. You cultivate alliances, sometimes temporarily, joining forces with former rivals like Tughril Khan against common enemies, such as the Tatars who poisoned your father. Your military thinking evolves. You emphasize discipline, coordination, and speed, qualities often lacking in traditional steppe warfare. You organize your warriors into decimal units, groups of 10, 100, 1000, promoting cohesion and accountability. You develop sophisticated tactics involving feigned retreats, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated archery volleys, maximizing the effectiveness of your highly mobile cavalry. Reframed! Scenes show disciplined groups of horsemen practicing maneuvers on the open steppe, responding instantly to signals from banners. No symbols depicted. Other scenes show you intently studying the landscape from a high vantage point, perhaps with advisors pointing out features, emphasizing strategic planning. Captured artisans, perhaps from defeated tribes or neighboring settled groups, are shown demonstrating improved equipment, stronger bows, better saddle designs, focusing on the technology, not its use in violence. The path to unification is fraught with setbacks and betrayals. Your alliance with Tughril Khan eventually sours, leading to a major confrontation. Reframed. Show the tense moments before the decisive break. Emissaries riding between the Kerate and Mongol camps, banners arrayed on opposite sides of a river or valley. Then show the aftermath. Your forces are clearly dominant, leading away captured Kerate horses and herds. Toghrul is absent, suggesting his defeat and flight, without depicting the battle itself. Similarly, your final confrontation with your former Anda, Jamukha, who has gathered a coalition of tribes opposed to your rise, represents the culmination of your struggle for supremacy. Reframed. Show the vast gathering of Jamukha's coalition, a sea of yurts and horses stretching across the plain. Contrast this with the disciplined order of your own camp. The aftermath shows your forces in control of the field. Jamukha is brought before you, perhaps bound but unharmed. Focus on the quiet, somber moment between the two former friends, their expressions conveying the weight of the final outcome without depicting violence. You might show Jamukha being respectfully escorted away, his fate left ambiguous but peaceful in the depiction. Finally, after years of relentless struggle, you achieve your goal. In the year 1206, a great Kurultai, a grand assembly of all the unified tribes, is held near the headwaters of the Onon River. Thousands upon thousands of Mongols gather, their yurts covering the plain, their vast herds of horses grazing nearby. The air buzzes with excitement and anticipation. Shamans perform rituals, smoke rising towards the eternal blue sky, Tengri, the supreme deity of the steppe nomads. Reframed. Show the immense scale of the Kurultai. A panoramic view of countless yurts, horses, and people spread across a wide river valley. Focus on the central area where tribal leaders are seated in respectful circles, perhaps sharing ceremonial bowls of arag. Show a tall banner, plain, without symbols, being raised, fluttering in the wind, symbolizing the new unity. At this assembly, you, Temujin, are formally acclaimed as the supreme ruler of all the peoples dwelling in felt tents. You are given a new title, Genghis Khan, often translated as Oceanic Ruler or Universal Ruler, Genghis Khan. This moment marks not just a personal triumph, but the birth of a new nation, the Mongol Empire. You immediately set about consolidating your power and organizing your new state. You commission the creation of a written script for the Mongol language, adapted from the Uyghur script to facilitate administration and record keeping. Reframed. Show scribes, represented perhaps by males in distinct robes, carefully making marks on wooden tablets or leather sheets using brushes, focusing on the act of recording, not the content. You proclaim the Yasa, a unified code of law, binding on all Mongols, standardizing social customs, regulating hunting, and establishing clear punishments for crimes like theft, adultery, and, most importantly, betrayal or disobedience within the military structure. Reframed. Show officials reading from scrolls, no visible text, to attentive gatherings of people in different parts of the camp, suggesting the dissemination of rules. Show scenes representing the law's effects, organised hunting parties moving information, disputes being calmly mediated by designated elders, guards overseeing orderly distribution of supplies, emphasising order and structure. You establish a communication system based on mounted relay messengers, the YAM, allowing for rapid transmission of orders and intelligence across the vast distances of your nascent empire. Reframed. Show lone horsemen riding swiftly across the steppe, changing horses at designated relay stations consisting of a few yurts and a corral of fresh mounts. Focus on the speed, efficiency, and endurance involved. With the Mongol tribes unified and organised under your undisputed leadership, their formidable energy, previously consumed by internal conflict, is now directed outwards. Your gaze turns towards the wealthy, settled civilizations bordering the steppe. The first major target is the Tangut Kingdom of Shixia, located to the south, controlling lucrative sections of the Silk Road. The campaign is meticulously planned. Scouts gather intelligence on mountain passes, water sources, and fortifications. Supplies are gathered, vast herds of spare horses, wagons carrying essential equipment. Reframed, show the logistics. Herds being driven, wagons being loaded with supplies like grain sacks and felt rolls, blacksmiths repairing metal tools, no weapons. The army is mobilized, a river of disciplined horsemen flowing out onto the steppe. Reframed, show the army on the move as a vast column stretching to the horizon, focusing on the scale, the discipline, the dust clouds, the rhythmic movement of thousands of horses across the immense landscape. Avoid showing any specific acts of aggression or siege equipment. The campaign against Xixia is successful, demonstrating the terrifying effectiveness of the unified Mongol military machine. Reframed, show the aftermath. Tangut officials arriving at the Mongol encampment under a flag of truce, plain white banner, bearing tribute chests. Show Mongol administrators peacefully organising the captured territory, surveying fields, counting livestock, establishing orderly markets. Focus on the establishment of control and administration, not the process of conquest. This victory secures valuable resources and establishes Mongol dominance in the region, setting the stage for even larger campaigns to come. Your attention then shifts towards the powerful Jin dynasty ruling northern China. You perceive insults or trade disputes as justification for intervention. Again, careful preparations are made. Intelligence is gathered. The intricate logistical apparatus of the Mongol state swings into action. Reframed. Show scenes of intense planning. You and your commanders gathered around a large felt map laid out on the ground, pointing and discussing strategy. Show the vast mobilization. Endless lines of horses being inspected, archers checking their bowstrings, focusing on readiness and scale. The invasion of northern China unfolds over several years. It involves crossing formidable natural barriers like the Gobi Desert and confronting large, well-fortified cities defended by sophisticated technology. The Mongols adapt quickly, learning siegecraft from captured engineers, employing new tactics alongside their traditional cavalry strengths. Reframed. Show the challenges. Horsemen struggling through a vast, featureless desert landscape under a blazing sun, emphasizing heat and thirst. Show the distant view of massive city walls rising from the plain, emphasizing the scale of the obstacle without showing siege engines or attacks. Show captured artisans demonstrating unfamiliar tools or techniques to Mongol observers in a peaceful workshop setting, focusing on knowledge transfer. The campaigns are arduous, requiring immense logistical support and unwavering discipline from the Mongol warriors. Reframed. Show scenes of the army making camp, thousands of yurts erected in orderly rows, horses being watered and fed, supply wagons arriving, emphasizing the mobile city and its organization. The result is the expansion of Mongol control deep into northern China, shattering the Jin dynasty's power and incorporating vast new territories and populations into the burgeoning empire. News of your victories spreads far and wide, carried along the Silk Road trade routes that your conquests are increasingly bringing under unified control. Envoys and merchants from distant lands begin to arrive at your court seeking trade agreements or offering submission. You establish a capital, Karakoram, though your court remains largely mobile, reflecting your nomadic heritage. Reframed. Show a vast, organized encampment on the steppe, perhaps with some more permanent structures visible. Large decorated yurts, wooden administrative buildings, representing Karakoram. Show caravans of camels laden with goods arriving peacefully, merchants displaying wares, silks, spices, metalwork to Mongol officials. Show envoys from different cultures, identifiable by distinct clothing styles, presenting gifts respectfully before you, seated calmly on a simple felt throne. You implement measures to foster trade and communication across your empire. Weights and measures are standardized. The yam relay system is expanded, ensuring swift communication from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. Merchants are granted protection and passports, encouraging commerce. Reframed. Show officials using standardized bronze weights to measure grain or silver. Show relay riders galloping across diverse landscapes, mountains, forests, deserts, emphasizing the reach of the yam. Show a guarded caravan moving safely along a well-maintained road, perhaps passing a Mongol guard post, no weapons displayed prominently, emphasizing security and trade. While born from conflict, the unification achieved under your rule begins to create an unprecedented era of stability and interconnectedness across Eurasia. What later historians would term the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. The focus shifts, at least partially, from relentless expansion to administration and the consolidation of gains. Your reputation evolves from that of a purely tribal unifier to that of an imperial ruler, a lawgiver, and an organizer of vast territories. The foundations of the largest contiguous land empire in history are firmly laid. The rise of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire was not a sudden explosion of violence, but a long, arduous process rooted in the brutal realities of survival on the unforgiving Eurasian steppe. It began with the profound vulnerability of a single, abandoned family, fighting against cold, hunger, and human betrayal. It was forged in the crucible of constant tribal warfare, where loyalty was paramount, and weakness meant annihilation. The unification of the Mongol tribes under Temujin was a monumental achievement, requiring decades of strategic alliances, political maneuvering, and relentless military effort, transforming scattered, feuding nomads into a disciplined, unified force with a shared identity and purpose. The subsequent expansion into settled lands was driven by a complex mix of ambition, perceived insults, economic necessity, and perhaps a belief in a divine mandate from Tengri, the eternal blue sky. The methods employed were often harsh, reflecting the brutal pragmatism learned on the steppe, but they were also coupled with sophisticated organization, logistical planning, and a surprising adaptability in adopting new technologies and administrative techniques. The resulting empire, though born from conflict, ultimately created a vast zone of relative peace and facilitated unprecedented levels of trade and cultural exchange across continents, reshaping the course of world history in ways that still echo today. The story is not just one of conquest, but of resilience, organization, and the creation of a new world order from the harshest of beginnings. The horse archers of the steppe. We have this image of the horse archer, perhaps Scythian, Hun, or Mongol. We picture this noble, free warrior thundering across a green field, his hair streaming, maybe even a falcon perched calmly on his arm amidst the chaos. We see a conqueror, a king in the making, a lone figure of power and grace, the undisputed master of the endless open world stretching before him. We imagine a life of pure freedom, unfettered movement, nights spent by crackling campfires under a canopy of brilliant stars, perhaps involving a deep spiritual connection to the horse and the eagle. We essentially see a romantic, windswept, almost mythical hero embodying strength and independence against a vast, dramatic landscape. But the truth is, the typical horse archer of the Eurasian steppe was almost never alone, and he was almost certainly never clean by our standards. He was, for most of the year, probably cold or battling biting winds. He likely smelled overwhelmingly of greasy wool saturated with lanolin, of sour fermented milk, of stale horse sweat ingrained in his clothing, and of the ever-present acrid smoke produced by burning dried animal dung, the only fuel available. His world was not one of carefree romantic freedom, but of constant grinding brutal necessity, dictated by the needs of his herds and the harshness of the environment. The horse was not primarily a beloved companion in the modern sense. It was an essential tool, a mobile platform, a source of food and drink, his legs upon the earth. The powerful composite bow was not for sport. It was primarily a pantry, the means to hunt for survival and supplement the larder. And that endless open world we romanticize was, in stark reality, an endless, often empty, terrifyingly flat, and relentlessly windswept pasture. A prison of grass with no visible walls, offering little shelter and demanding constant movement in search of sustenance. If you've stayed with me through this first story, I'm glad it's brought you a moment of peace. If you'd like to help this little community of ours keep growing, a simple like or subscribe is always appreciated. And I'd still love to know where you're listening from. It's been wonderful seeing voices from all over the world join in. We are not here tonight for a detailed lecture on the specific histories of the Scythians, the Huns, or the Mongols, or a technical analysis of composite bow construction. We are here simply to take a slow, immersive, sensory walk through the harsh but functional world that these horse cultures inhabited for millennia. We are not necessarily looking for the great Khans or the legendary warrior queens tonight. We are looking for that everyday person, the anonymous figure whose life revolved around the herd and the horizon. We are looking for the ones with the perpetual saddle sores, the wind-burned skin, the hands stained with grease and milk. We are looking for the horse archers of the steppe. You are cold. That is the first sensation that registers, penetrating the layers of sleep even before you are fully awake. It is not a sharp, biting cold, but a damp, seeping chill that has worked its way relentlessly through the multiple thick, felted wool layers that form the walls of your home. You are curled tightly on a pile of furs and more felt blankets, laid directly on the hard-packed earth floor, trying to conserve body heat. The air inside the yurt, your jia, is thick, heavy, almost viscous. It smells overwhelmingly of lanolin, the greasy, distinctly animal aroma emanating from the sheep's wool embedded in the felt walls and coverings. This smell mingles with the sour, slightly pungent scent of spilled milk, likely from yesterday's churning. It also carries the close, unwashed scent of human bodies. Your entire extended family, perhaps 10 or 15 people, packed tightly together in this confined space for shared warmth through the frigid nights, and permeating everything is the thin, acrid smoke from the central hearth, stinging your eyes and coating the back of your throat. You're inside a round, low, domed tent, your entire world contained within this portable circle. The walls are constructed from a collapsible lattice of thin, flexible wooden poles, designed to be folded compactly for travel, now expanded into a circular frame. This frame is covered in multiple heavy layers of thick wool felt, manufactured by your family from the fleeces of your own sheep. These felt panels are tightly tied down with ropes intricately woven from horsehair, creating a remarkably sturdy and well-insulated, though not entirely airtight dwelling. In the exact centre of the domed roof is a single round opening, the tuno or smoke hole, often covered by a removable felt flap. This opening serves as your only window to the outside world, your only source of natural light during the day, and your only chimney for the fire below. Directly beneath it lies the hearth, a simple circle of blackened stones laid on the bare earth floor, where a small, sputtering fire made of dried animal dung, argle, struggles against the morning damp, producing more smoke than heat. There is no wood for fuel. You have not seen a tree substantial enough to harvest in perhaps a month of travel. Your precious fuel is the dried waste produced by your own herds, laboriously collected by the females and younger members of your family. You are almost never alone. You are packed into this single circular space with your entire extended family unit. Perhaps 10, maybe 15 people, representing multiple generations, sleep arranged in a circle with their feet pointing towards the central fire for warmth. There is absolutely no concept of privacy as understood in settled societies. There are no separate rooms, no partitions. There is just this one round, smoky, greasy, communal space where all of life happens. Sleeping, eating, working, being born, and dying. You can hear the intimate sounds of every person sharing this space. The soft, or sometimes loud, breathing, the occasional sniffle, the dry coughs exacerbated by the smoke. Just beyond the felt wall, separated only by a layer of wool, you can hear the snorting and shuffling of the family's most valuable horses, tethered close for security, and the restless stirring and occasional bleating of the sheepherd, huddled together against the biting wind for mutual warmth. The wind itself, your constant companion on the steppe, is an omnipresent low, moaning sound, pressing insistently against the felt walls, finding every tiny gap in the seams, sending a cold, sharp draft snaking across the earth floor, reminding you of the vast, harsh world just outside. You decide to move, slowly uncurling from your tight ball. You push off the heavy, slightly damp felt blankets. The air away from the immediate warmth of your sleeping companions is instantly, shockingly frigid against your skin. You are already fully dressed, as is customary. You sleep in your clothes, a long woolen tunic reaching your knees, thick baggy trousers also made of wool or perhaps leather, and soft knee-high leather boots lined with felt for insulation. All of your clothing is thoroughly impregnated with lanolin, the natural grease from sheep's wool, which makes it remarkably water-resistant and enhances its warmth, though it also contributes to the pervasive greasy smell that clings to everything and everyone. You crawl, stooping low beneath the curved roof poles, towards the low wooden doorway set into the lattice frame. You pull back the heavy, multi-layered felt flap that serves as your door. You brace yourself and step outside into the morning. The light hits you like a physical blow after the dimness of the yurt. It is not the bright, cheerful light of a sunny morning elsewhere. It is a vast, white, almost featureless emptiness. The sun is a pale, weak, distant disk hanging in a vast, pale, washed-out blue sky that seems to stretch infinitely in all directions. The land itself, visible to the impossibly distant horizon, is uniformly flat, offering no comforting contours or landmarks, and it is white, or rather a dirty off-white. A thin, dry, powdery coating of old snow covers the endless expanse of dead, brown grass, remnants of a winter storm, perhaps weeks ago. The sheer scale of the emptiness, the lack of any vertical element, no trees, no hills, just flat land and huge sky, can feel profoundly disorienting, almost terrifying. Then the wind hits you. It is not a gentle breeze. It feels like a physical, solid force pushing against you, threatening to steal your breath. It seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. A constant screaming river of frigid air flowing unimpeded over the top of the world. It cuts effortlessly through your greasy wool clothes, chilling you instantly. It stings your exposed face, making your eyes water. Your skin is already chapped raw from constant exposure. Your lips are cracked, dry, and perhaps bleeding slightly. You automatically pull your fur-lined conical felt hat down tighter over your ears for meagre protection. You squint your eyes against the wind and the glare and look out. Your world is an immense, seemingly infinite ocean of dead, brown grass, stretching unbroken to a perfectly flat horizon line, miles and miles away. There are no mountains visible. There are no significant valleys or hills. There are no rivers in sight, only perhaps the faint depression of a dry watercourse. There are absolutely no trees. There is just grass and sky, and the ever-present howling wind. And animals. Your world, despite its emptiness, is also paradoxically a sea of animals. They surround your small cluster of yurts, stretching out across the plain. There are thousands of them. Sheep, mostly, a vast, churning, bleating carpet of greasy wool covering the landscape. Goats are mixed among them, their coats even shaggier, their cries more insistent. And crucially, there are the horses. Hundreds of horses, the foundation of your culture, your mobility, your survival. They are not the noble, tall, slender creatures depicted in paintings from settled lands. They are Przewalski-type horses, shaggy, incredibly hardy, built for endurance rather than pure speed. They are stocky, relatively short-legged, with thick, coarse manes that hang heavy and often matted, and large, heavy heads. They are undeniably tough. They have to be, to survive the extremes of the steppe climate. Right now, they're using their hard hooves to paw persistently at the thin, crusted snow, trying to uncover the meagre sustenance of the dead grass buried beneath. This vast, mobile collection of livestock is your family's entire wealth. It is your food source. It is your transportation. It is your whole world, constantly in motion. You are not the first one awake and outside. The shorter, younger males of your extended family are already hard at work amongst the herds. You see their small figures, bundled tightly in wool and fur against the cold, moving purposefully among the animals. Their job, the first crucial chore of every single day, is milking. You walk towards the horse herd, specifically the mares currently nursing foals. As an adult male, your responsibility is primarily with the horses. The mares are only semi-domesticated, inherently suspicious and protective of their young. You approach one slowly, holding a wide, shallow wooden bucket in your hand, its surface dark and stained from years of use. You speak to the mare in a low, calm, reassuring voice, using sounds she recognizes. You move carefully to her side, grab a handful of her coarse, thick mane to steady yourself, and exert some control. You must be quick and confident. A shorter, younger male accompanying you, perhaps your own apprentice relative, performs the essential counterpart to your action. He momentarily distracts the nearby foal, sometimes allowing it to nurse for just a second, then deftly pulls it away. This action is the trigger, the only reason the wary mare will let down her milk for you. You immediately kneel or squat beside her, placing the bucket underneath. You grasp her teats, your cold fingers working quickly, stripping the milk, a surprisingly thin, bluish, watery stream, into the wooden bucket. It is not much milk at all. A mare on steppe pasture does not produce a large volume at any one time, especially outside the peak grazing season. You have to repeat this entire process over and over all morning long, moving patiently from one lactating mare to the next, slowly accumulating enough milk for the family's needs. The shorter male follows, managing the foals. It is a cold, tedious, sometimes dangerous task if a mare decides to kick. Once you have collected a sufficient amount, you carry the heavy wooden bucket back towards the warmth of the yurt. The females of the family are already engaged in milking the goats and sheep, adding their contributions to the morning's yield. All the collected milk is poured together. Some of it might be heated immediately in the iron cauldron over the dung fire, perhaps boiled with a handful of precious millet grain, if your family currently possesses any, to make a thin, greasy but warming morning porridge. But the majority of the mare's milk, the most prized component, goes directly into the special container, hanging prominently near the yurt doorway. It is a large, sturdy leather bag, perhaps made from a whole sheepskin, its opening puckered shut with a drawstring. Its interior surface is coated with the thick, dried, yellowish residue of 1,000 previous batches of fermentation. You carefully pour the fresh, bluish mare's milk into the leather bag, adding it to the remains of yesterday's batch. You take the wooden dasher, a long stick with a perforated wooden disc at the end, which rests inside the bag. You begin to churn, plunging the dasher up and down vigorously. You are making kumis, or erag, as you call it. This is fermented, slightly alcoholic, mare's milk. This sour, fizzy beverage is your primary source of hydration. Water sources on the steppe are often scarce or brackish. It is your beer, providing calories and a mild lift. Crucially, the fermentation process also produces vitamin C, making it your vital protection against scurvy in a diet largely devoid of fresh fruits and vegetables. The leather bag, the kokur, is never fully emptied and never washed. The old, potent culture of bacteria and yeasts clinging to the inside instantly begins to work on the newly added milk, continuing the perpetual fermentation cycle. You pass the dasher to a younger male who enters the yurt. It is a constant shared chore throughout the day. Everyone who enters or leaves the yurt is expected, indeed required by custom, to give the kumi's bag a few good plunges with the dasher. It is the polite thing to do, a contribution to the communal sustenance. It is simply how you all survive. You take a simple wooden bowl from a low storage chest. You dip it into the open top of the churning leather bag. You scoop out the white, slightly frothy liquid. You raise the bowl to your lips and drink. This is your breakfast. The taste is an acquired one, a complex experience entirely foreign to settled peoples. It is intensely sharp, sour and noticeably fizzy on the tongue from the fermentation, with a smoky, slightly leathery aftertaste imparted by the cured skin bag itself. It is, perhaps to an outsider's palate, quite appalling. To you, it is the taste of life itself. It is the familiar, slightly warm, fizzy feeling in your stomach that cuts the morning cold and settles your hunger pangs. It is the primary flavour profile of your world, besides greasy boiled meat and perhaps a little salt. You drink deeply, draining the bowl. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, your moustache or beard now greasy with the sour, white liquid. It is time to truly start the day's work outside. Your primary work involves the horses. You walk back out into the biting wind, towards the vast horse herd spread out across the plain. Your first task is to check the condition of the animals. You are looking for any signs of lameness, which could be fatal if an animal cannot keep up with the migration. You check for sickness, coughing, listlessness. You look for cuts or wounds, perhaps from predators or accidents, that might become infected. You carry your essential herding tool, a long, slender wooden pole, the urga, with a characteristic horsehair rope loop fixed at the far end, used for catching horses by the neck from a distance. You have no intention of walking through the entire herd. You almost never walk any significant distance if a horse is available. You put 2 fingers in your mouth and produce a sharp, distinctive whistle. Your personal horse, grazing nearby, lifts its head, recognizes your call, and trots over obediently. You approach it calmly, murmuring a greeting. You grab a thick handful of its coarse, matted mane near the withers. In one smooth, fluid motion, honed by a lifetime of practice since earliest awareness, you swing yourself up onto its warm, broad, shaggy back. There is no saddle, not for this everyday work within the camp's vicinity. You simply sit directly on its back, your body instinctively finding the point of balance. Your legs, perhaps slightly bowed from spending more hours of your life on horseback than on your own feet, grip its sides firmly but gently. You are instantly comfortable, instantly in control. This feels more natural than standing on the ground. You ride out slowly into the main herd. The ground is hard, frozen solid. The horses' unshod hooves crunch loudly on the icy grass and thin layer of snow. You begin moving through the animals, your experienced eyes scanning each one quickly, assessing their condition. You are moving. You are almost always moving when you are outside the yurt. You are far more comfortable, more stable, more efficient here, on the back of a horse, than you are stumbling over the uneven ground on your own 2 feet. Your feet, encased in their soft, flexible leather boots, sometimes feel awkward and clumsy when you are dismounted for extended periods. They are primarily for use inside the yurt, or for the final approach when hunting on foot. Your legs, however, are perfectly adapted for gripping the horse. You've been riding since before you can reliably remember. The shorter, younger males in your family group, the ones barely old enough to balance, were likely tied securely onto the backs of placid sheep as soon as they could sit up unsupported, just to get them accustomed to the feeling of movement and height. Then, as soon as they were slightly older, they were tied onto gentle foals, learning balance and basic commands almost subconsciously. This constant early exposure is not some kind of weekend pony club activity or a recreational hobby. This is fundamental survival training. This is driver's ed in a world without roads, and the car is also your house, your food source, and your primary weapon platform. The shorter, younger males learn to ride fluently, instinctively, long before they can properly walk long distances or run effectively. They spend their days out with the herds, under the watchful eyes of older relatives, learning to move the animals, to stop, to turn sharply, to stay mounted during sudden sprints or bucks, learning to become one fluid entity with the animal beneath them. They fall off constantly. They get bruised. They are cold. They probably cry from frustration or minor injuries. They are immediately put back on the horse. There is simply no other way to learn, no alternative path. To be unhorsed on the vast steppe, to be left alone on foot, is often tantamount to being dead, vulnerable to predators, exposure, or starvation. You are like a fish in an immense ocean of grass. Your horse is not just transportation. It is your fins, your gills, your very means of existence. You spend the entire morning riding slowly through the vast, restless herd, occasionally using your long pole with the loop to gently nudge stray animals back towards the main group. The wind is endless, a constant pressure against your face and body. Your eyes are perpetually narrowed into slits against it, constantly scanning the impossibly distant, flat horizon in all directions. You are not just herding your own animals. You are watching. You are looking for any sign of movement, anything that does not belong. You are looking specifically for other humans, other nomadic groups. You are looking for the telltale plume of dust raised by a distant group of riders, or the dark shapes of unfamiliar yurts appearing on the skyline. The steppe, despite its apparent emptiness, is not truly empty. It is sparsely populated by numerous other clans and tribes, people living exactly as you do. And their herds are probably thin too after the hard winter. Scarcity breeds conflict. Vigilance is survival. You identify yourself as a horse archer. That term defines your culture, your military prowess. But the reality of your daily life is that you are mostly just a horseman. The archery, while a vital skill practiced constantly, comes second to the demands of basic existence. You are fundamentally a herder. You are a nomadic shepherd. You are essentially a cowboy, operating on the coldest, biggest, most dangerous ranch in the entire world. You notice a horse limping slightly. You maneuver your mount closer, using your looped pole to gently catch the injured animal by the neck. You slide off your own horse, keeping the rope taut. You carefully examine the animal's leg. There is a deep, nasty cut just above the hoof, likely from a sharp stone hidden beneath the snow. You carry a small, worn leather pouch attached to your belt, containing essential items. You take out some dried, crushed herbs, known for their drawing properties, and a small lump of hardened mutton fat. You mix them together in your palm, creating a greasy, basic salve. You carefully smear the pungent mixture onto the cut, hoping to prevent infection and promote healing. It is the best field medicine you can offer. You murmur soothingly to the horse as you work. It is not a pet, not an animal you feel sentimental affection for in the way settled people might. It is a vital piece of your livelihood. It represents your mobility, your status, your ability to hunt and defend yourself. It is your life. It is your legs. You pat its thick, shaggy neck. You release the loop. You quickly swing back onto your own mount. The entire herd must soon move on from this location, The sparse grass here is almost completely gone. Later in the day, perhaps after the main meal, you return to the yurt. It is time to practice your defining skill. You are a horse archer. This technical proficiency is your primary advantage, the skill that defines you as a warrior and a provider. You go into the relative warmth and dimness of the yurt. You retrieve your bow from its protective case, perhaps a decorated leather sheath, where it hangs safely from the lattice wall. It is not a simple single piece of wood, like the longbows used by forest peoples in distant lands. Your bow is a sophisticated machine, a complex laminated composite recurve bow, the product of generations of refinement. It is likely your single most valuable manufactured possession, perhaps worth more than several horses. It is meticulously constructed in layers to maximize power and resilience in a compact form. The core might be a light wood, perhaps birch or maple, carefully shaped. Glued firmly onto the belly, the side facing you when you draw, is a layer of resilient animal horn, possibly from an ibex or water buffalo, painstakingly carved, steamed, and fitted to the wooden core. Horn compresses well, storing energy efficiently. On the back of the bow, the side facing away from you, is a thick layer of animal sinew. Long strands of sinew, likely from the legs of deer or cattle, have been pounded into fine fibres, soaked, and then glued down under tension along the entire length of the wooden core. Sinew stretches remarkably well, adding immense power to the bow's draw and snap. The glue holding these crucial layers together is the secret ingredient, the technological marvel. It is typically made from fish bladders or hides, boiled down slowly for days, rendered into a thick, sticky, incredibly potent adhesive that remains slightly flexible when dry. Applying the layers, waiting for the glue to cure properly, shaping the complex recurve. The entire process of making such a bow can take a skilled craftsman over a year. The finished bow is often wrapped tightly in thin birch bark or strips of fine leather, not just for decoration, but primarily to protect the delicate glue and sinew layers from moisture and abrasion. Your bow is not particularly long. It is deliberately kept relatively short, perhaps only 4 feet overall, so that you can wield it effectively from the confined space of horseback. But despite its compact size, thanks to the combination of horn, wood, and sinew, it is incredibly powerful, capable of storing and releasing enormous energy, far exceeding that of a simple wooden bow of the same size. It is also, however, incredibly delicate. This is the brutal reality often overlooked. This high-performance weapon, the key to your way of life, is held together by organic glue that readily dissolves in water. If your bow gets thoroughly soaked in a rainstorm, or dropped in a river, it will delaminate. The carefully balanced layers will peel apart. It will lose its tension, its power. It will become a useless, sticky, warped collection of horn fragments, wood splinters, and gooey sinew. You must constantly protect it from dampness, keeping it in its case whenever possible, treating its surface perhaps with fat or wax. A wet bow is a dead bow. When not in use, the bow is always kept unstrung to preserve its power. In its unstrung state, it curves forward dramatically into a pronounced C shape, the tips almost touching. You must now string it before you can practice. This is not a casual act like stringing a simple longbow. It requires significant strength and a precise technique, engaging your entire body. You place one end of the stiff bow against the inside of your foot, anchoring it to the ground. You brace the central grip firmly against the inside of your opposite knee. You hook the upper limb with your arm or hand, and then you use the powerful muscles of your leg as a lever, bending the entire rigid, resistant composite structure with all your strength. Your muscles strain, your face tightens with the effort. While holding the bow flexed under immense tension, you must use your free hand to quickly, carefully slip the braided string loop securely into the nock at the bow tip. You then cautiously release the pressure. The bow snaps violently into its fighting shape. A taut, graceful double curve, with the string now under hundreds of pounds of tension. It feels alive in your hands now. It seems to hum faintly with stored energy, ready to unleash its power. You pick up your quiver from beside the yurt entrance. It is a cylindrical container, perhaps made of decorated leather or birch bark, slung over your shoulder. It is full of arrows, long slender shafts made from lightweight reeds or wood, carefully straightened. They are fletched with eagle feathers, or perhaps vulture feathers, arranged to ensure a stable flight. Their arrowheads vary. Some might be sharpened bone or fire-hardened wood for hunting small game or practice, while others reserved for warfare or hunting larger animals might be sharp, triangular iron heads acquired through trade or crafted by a skilled smith within your tribe. You are a horse archer. It is time to train, to maintain the skills that define you. You walk briskly to your horse. This time, you saddle it properly for the demands of archery practice. The saddle is a relatively simple but highly functional wooden frame covered in thick felt for padding. It features two distinctively high ridges, a pommel at the front and a cantle at the back, creating a deep, secure seat. This design is crucial. It locks you firmly in place, providing stability and allowing you to twist your upper body freely without losing your seat, even during violent maneuvers at high speed. You slide your feet into these simple wide leather loops that hang from the saddle, serving as stirrups. Another vital innovation that provides leverage and stability for shooting on the move. You gather the single rein of your simple bridle, often just a leather thong looped around the horse's lower jaw. You nudge the horse with your heels. It springs forward immediately, eager to run. Within moments, you're at a full gallop. The frozen ground thunders rhythmically under the horse's driving hooves. The biting wind tears at your face, bringing involuntary tears to your eyes, blurring your vision slightly. Your body moves effortlessly with the horse, perfectly in rhythm, absorbing the powerful motion. You are not bouncing precariously in the saddle. You feel like an extension of the animal, a centaur fused at the hip. You reach smoothly over your shoulder without looking. Your fingers find the nock of an arrow in the quiver. You pull it free in one continuous motion. You knock it firmly onto the bowstring by feel alone. You are not drawing the string back with your fingers in the Mediterranean style. You are using the traditional thumb draw of the steppe nomads. Your thumb, protected by a polished ring made of bone, horn, or sometimes jade, hooks the heavy string. Your index and middle fingers lock securely over your thumb, reinforcing the grip. You do not have a specific marked target set up for practice today. Or rather, your target is simply the steppe itself, a distant, isolated tuft of brown grass that catches your eye, a distinctively shaped rock perhaps 50 yards away, a bare patch of darker earth. The exact target does not really matter. Hitting a stationary object from a moving platform is only part of the skill. The process, the smooth, repeatable, instinctive sequence of actions, matters more. You pull the bowstring back smoothly, drawing the arrow towards your anchor point, perhaps near your ear or cheek. The strain across your shoulders and back muscles is immense. The composite bow is heavy to draw, requiring significant strength built up over a lifetime of daily practice. You are holding all that stored tension, perhaps 100 pounds of force or more. Your horse continues its relentless gallop beneath you. You wait, scanning ahead, feeling the rhythm of the horse. You wait for the precise moment in its stride, the brief, almost imperceptible instant when all four of the horse's hooves are simultaneously off the ground during the gallop, the moment of suspension, of relative stillness amidst the chaos of the bounding run. Now, in that fleeting instant of airborne stability, you release. Your thumb flicks open cleanly. The heavy bowstring snaps forward with a flat, powerful thrumming sound that you feel as much as hear. The arrow is gone, vanished from your sight almost instantly. It flies straight and low, a dark streak against the pale landscape. It disappears abruptly into the brown grass somewhere near the rock you had casually selected. You do not stop the horse. You do not check to see if you hit it. You are already reaching back automatically for your next arrow. Knock. Draw smoothly, anchoring firmly. Wait for the float, that instant of suspension. Release cleanly. Reach again. Knock. Draw. Wait. Release. This fluid, rapid sequence becomes your meditation. This is your life's work distilled into a few seconds of intense focus and physical exertion, repeated endlessly. It might seem boring to an outsider. It is repetitive, but it is absolutely essential for your survival and your identity. You wheel the horse around in a tight circle without slowing the gallop, leaning into the turn. You are now galloping back roughly the way you came. Now you practice the real defining skill of the steppe horse archer, the technique that terrified settled armies for centuries. You twist your entire upper body around at the waist within the deep, secure saddle. You're now facing almost completely backwards, while the horse continues to gallop forwards at full speed. This is the famous Parthian shot, named by the Romans after one of the many steppe peoples who perfected it. You draw and release smoothly, aiming back over the horse's rump at imaginary pursuers. This is not just a fancy trick for show. It is a vital tactical necessity. It is how you harass a pursuing enemy, showering them with arrows while maintaining a safe distance. It is also how you often hunt, by stampeding a herd of animals past concealed fellow hunters, or by riding alongside a fleeing herd and picking off individuals with shots angled backwards as you pass. You practice this demanding maneuver for perhaps an hour, firing dozens of arrows until your drawing shoulder burns with fatigue and your thumb joint is sore, even through the protective ring. You are not born a warrior. You are a highly trained technician. And this complex, deadly machine, the combination of horse, rider, and composite bow, is your craft. It is time to hunt. Practice is over. The repetitive training must translate into actual food. You need fresh meat. The vast herd surrounding your camp is your wealth, your savings account, but you do not consume it lightly. You do not slaughter a healthy sheep or, heaven forbid, a horse, unless absolutely necessary, perhaps for a ritual feast or in direst emergency. Killing your breeding stock feels like eating your future. Fortunately, the steppe, though seemingly empty, provides wild game, if you have the skill and endurance to find and take it. You ride out from the camp, perhaps with 2 other experienced males from your kinship group. You travel light, carrying only your bow, a full quiver, a knife, and perhaps some water or kumis. You are riding away from your familiar camp environs, heading deeper into the vast, silent emptiness, seeking pastures, where wild herds might gather. You are looking constantly for movement, for any sign of life. Your eyes, honed by a lifetime spent scanning immense distances, are incredibly sharp. You have been trained since you were a shorter male, accompanying older hunters to spot the slightest flicker of motion, the faintest dust cloud, the distant silhouette of an animal against the horizon, often miles away. You ride for hours across the undulating, seemingly featureless plain. The world shrinks to the rhythmic crunch of your horse's hooves on the frozen grass and the ceaseless, mournful sound of the wind whistling past your ears. You are cold again. The brief warmth generated by archery practice long dissipated. Your stomach feels hollow, reminding you of the purpose of this journey. You reach into a pouch at your belt and take out a piece of karut. It is a small, off-white ball of dried, intensely sour cheese or yogurt, preserved through dehydration until it is as hard as a rock. You cannot simply bite into it. You must place it in your mouth and suck on it patiently for perhaps an hour, letting your saliva slowly dissolve the dense, salty, sour substance. It is a terrible form of ancient trail mix by modern standards, chalky, intensely tangy, almost unpleasant, but it provides vital calories, electrolytes, and something to occupy your mind during the long, monotonous ride. You roll the hard little ball around in your mouth, feeling it slowly soften. Suddenly, one of the other males riding slightly ahead of you raises his hand, signaling a halt. You rein in your horse, instantly alert. You follow his gaze towards the distant horizon. At first, you see nothing but the endless brown and white expanse. Then, you discern it. A faint, distant, dark line, barely distinguishable from the shadows, flickering slightly. As you watch, the line resolves into individual shapes. A herd of saiga antelope, perhaps, or maybe smaller gazelles. They are miles away, tiny specks against the vastness. Your heart beats a little faster. The hunt begins. You do not charge directly at them. That would spook them into immediate flight. Instead, the three of you begin your careful, coordinated approach. You spread out, forming a wide, shallow crescent. You ride slowly, angling obliquely towards the herd, trying to stay downwind so they do not catch your scent. The antelope, possessing incredibly keen senses honed by constant vigilance against predators like wolves, eventually detect your presence. Heads snap up. They become nervous, bunching together, beginning to move away uncertainly. That is the signal. The chase begins in earnest. You kick your horse hard, urging it instantly into a flat-out gallop, closing the distance rapidly. The antelope explode into motion, running with incredible speed across the open plain, their pale coats blending almost perfectly with the winter landscape. Your sturdy steppe pony, though possessing great endurance, cannot match their initial burst of speed. But you have a plan, a strategy refined over countless generations of steppe hunters. You and the other two males are working as a team, not just chasing, but actively herding the fleeing animals. You push them, turning them subtly, guiding their flight. You are running them in a wide, predetermined circle, or perhaps driving them towards a known geographical feature like a box canyon or a frozen lake where their speed will be less of an advantage. You employ a relay tactic. One rider pushes the herd hard for a time, then peels off to let their horse recover slightly, while another rider takes over the pursuit, never allowing the antelope a moment to rest or slow down. This is the essence of the steppe hunt. It is rarely a quick, clean shot from ambush. It is almost always an extended, grueling, hours-long endurance match, testing the stamina of both the hunter's horses and the prey. Your own horse is soon lathered in thick white sweat, despite the cold, its powerful lungs heaving, clouds of steam billowing from its nostrils. You too are sweating heavily under your layers of wool and fur, your body pushed to its limit by the demands of controlling a galloping horse while preparing to shoot. Finally, after hours of relentless pursuit, the antelope begin to visibly tire. Their strides shorten, their desperate speed begins to flag. Now is your chance. You push your horse in a final burst of speed, closing the distance until you are galloping alongside the terrified, exhausted herd. You can smell their dusty, pungent scent, hear their panicked breathing. You act purely on instinct, honed by endless practice. You reach over your shoulder, smoothly drawing an arrow from the quiver. Your hands move automatically, efficiently, without conscious thought, even as your body rocks with the horse's powerful motion. You knock the arrow to the string. You are not thinking about the cold, the exhaustion, the wind. You are entirely focused on the target, on the rhythm of the chase. Knock, draw smoothly, anchoring by feel. Wait for that brief instant of suspension, the float, release. The arrow disappears instantly from the bowstring. You see it strike true, a dark flicker against the pale brown fur of a large male antelope running just yards away. You see the animal falter, stumble slightly in its stride. You do not pause to watch its fate. You are already reaching back instinctively for your next arrow, selecting another target, preparing for the next shot. Perhaps one of the other hunters also makes a successful shot. Within moments, the brief, chaotic culmination of the long chase is over. You wheel your sweating, trembling horse around. The hunt is finished. You ride back slowly towards the fallen animal, or animals, dark shapes now still upon the white-dusted grass. You slide stiffly off your horse, your own legs shaking from the prolonged exertion and adrenaline. You and the other two males gather around the downed prey. You have food. Working quickly together, before the carcass freezes solid in the biting wind, you field dress the animal. The work is efficient, practiced, unsentimental. The warm blood steams briefly in the frigid air as the body cavity is opened. You load the heavy, butchered carcass onto one of the spare horses you brought specifically for this purpose, distributing the weight carefully. You quickly gather your spent arrows if you can find them. You turn your exhausted horses for home. The sun is already low on the western horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. It will be full dark long before you reach the relative safety and warmth of your camp. It will be a long, cold, slow ride home, burdened by your success, alert for wolves, perhaps drawn by the scent of blood. You arrive back at the camp well after nightfall, guided the last few miles perhaps by the faint glow of the yurt fires against the dark horizon, or simply by an innate sense of direction. The yurts appear as low, rounded humps in the darkness, smoke curling faintly from their crowns. The familiar smell of burning dung smoke carries on the wind. The smell of home, of safety, of warmth. You call out as you approach, identifying yourselves. Figures emerge from the yurts. You gratefully unload the heavy carcass. The females immediately take charge of it, working quickly and efficiently by the flickering light of the outdoor fire. The animal is rapidly skinned, the hide set aside for tanning. It is expertly butchered into manageable pieces using surprisingly small, sharp knives. The best cuts of meat are immediately taken inside. Chunks are dropped directly into the large cast iron cauldron that perpetually hangs over the central fire inside your family's yurt. Water, or perhaps melted ice, is added. A generous handful of precious salt, obtained through trade, is tossed in. That is usually the extent of the seasoning. You collapse onto your felt mat near the fire, utterly exhausted. Your entire body aches profoundly from the punishing ride and the physical demands of the hunt. You hold your numb, frozen hands out towards the smoky dung fire, trying to regain some feeling. The yurt gradually fills with the simple, satisfying smell of boiling mutton or antelope, a thick, greasy, intensely animal smell. To an outsider, it might be overpowering or unpleasant. To you, after a long, cold, successful hunt, it is the best smell in the world, the smell of survival, of sustenance. You reach for the communal wooden bowl, dip it into the ever-present kumis bag hanging near the door. You drink the sour, fizzy liquid deeply. It is your immediate reward, cutting through your thirst, offering calories and warmth. The stew in the cauldron bubbles and simmers. It is not a sophisticated meal by any standard. It is simply boiled meat, likely stringy, tough, and perhaps slightly gamey, depending on the animal. But it is hot food. Finally, the meal is ready. The head female of the household ladles the steaming stew into individual wooden bowls. You are given yours. The hot, incredibly greasy broth is ladled in first. You lift the bowl with both hands and drink the broth directly, slurping loudly. It is scalding hot, intensely salty, and it warms you instantly from the inside out, spreading a feeling of deep comfort through your chilled body. Then, using only your fingers and the small utility knife you always carry at your belt, you reach into the bowl and pull out a chunk of the boiled meat. You tear off pieces with your teeth, chewing patiently. The meat is chewy. It is often tough, requiring strong jaw muscles, but it is hot. It is vital protein. It is essential fat. Fat is highly prized for energy in this cold climate. It is the fuel you desperately need to survive another cold day, another long ride. This simple, repetitive cycle, enduring the cold wind, managing the horses, hunting or raiding for sustenance, returning to the smoky yurt for a meal of sour milk and boiled meat. This is the entirety of your life. The sparse pasture in your current location is finally exhausted. You have been camped in this spot for perhaps 3 weeks, maybe a month. The thousands of sharp hooves and hungry mouths of your sheep, goats and horses have completely eaten the dry, dead winter grass down to the frozen dirt in a wide radius around the yurts. The ground within the camp is now heavily trampled and covered in a thick layer of frozen animal droppings. The animals are growing restless, needing fresh grazing. It is unquestionably time to move. The entire village, your AUL, the collection of related families travelling together, must pack up and migrate to a new location. This constant movement is the defining, brutal reality of your nomadic life. You are not a settler tied to a piece of land. You are a passenger, constantly following the grass, forever dependent on its sparse bounty. Your home is not a place, but a process, the process of movement itself. The females of the family, who traditionally own the yurt and its contents, take charge of dismantling your home. Working efficiently in the cold wind, they begin to deconstruct the sturdy dwelling. The numerous horsehair ropes securing the felt coverings are expertly untied. The heavy, stiff felt panels, often soaked with grease and ice, are pulled off the wooden frame, carefully rolled or folded up and stacked, ready for transport. The circular wooden crown that forms the smoke hole, often intricately carved, is carefully lowered and secured. The collapsible wooden lattice walls are then folded up, collapsing neatly like an accordion into manageable bundles. Your entire house, a structure that just moments ago felt like a warm, solid, permanent home against the elements, is now reduced to a tidy pile of sticks, felt blankets, and ropes. You own almost nothing that cannot be easily carried or transported. There is no heavy, fragile pottery, Cooking is done in durable iron cauldrons, food stored in leather bags or wooden chests. You own no large, cumbersome furniture. You sit and sleep on felt mats and furs laid on the ground. You possess your sleeping felts, the essential iron cauldron, perhaps a few carved wooden chests for storing clothes and valuables, your personal tools, knives, ropes, whetstones, and your vital horse tack, saddles, bridles. That is essentially the sum total of your material possessions. Everything must be portable. Everything is loaded either onto large, sturdy, two-wheeled wooden carts, often pulled by slow, patient oxen rather than horses, or packed securely onto the backs of designated pack horses or camels. The shorter, younger males and females are running everywhere, shouting, chasing stray animals, expertly tying bundles onto pack frames, their movements practiced and efficient despite the apparent chaos. The entire camp transforms into a frantic scene of organized, purposeful activity. But it is astonishingly fast. You have all done this hundreds, perhaps thousands of times throughout your lives. Within just a few hours, the spot where your small village stood moments before is now empty, marked only by a collection of dark, circular patches on the ground where the yurts compressed the earth, the grey ashes of old hearths, and the flattened, dung-covered grass. You walk to your saddled horse. You swing easily onto its back. The vast herd of sheep, goats, and horses is already being gathered, urged into motion by the experienced herders on horseback, forming a slow-moving river of animals. The heavy wooden carts begin to creak forward, their ungreased wooden axles making a loud, groaning, protesting sound that will be your constant companion for the next several days of travel across the silent steppe. You are on the move again. You, your family, your neighbours, your herds. Your entire world is in motion. A slow-moving cloud of dust, or perhaps swirling snow in winter, bleating and snorting animals, and loudly creaking carts crawls deliberately across the vast empty plain towards a predetermined distant patch of hopefully better grazing land. You are a horse archer, a hunter, perhaps even a raider at times. But today, and for many days to come during the migration, you are primarily a drover, a mover, part of the logistical effort of relocating your entire society. You ride patiently on the flank of the main herd, your bow safely stowed across your back, perhaps carrying your long herding pole. You work constantly, riding back and forth, keeping the animals bunched together, preventing stragglers from wandering off and becoming lost or falling prey to wolves. And you are watching, always watching the distant horizon, scanning for any potential threats. Predators, rival groups, signs of bad weather. You will ride like this all day long, from sunrise until dusk. You will likely not stop for a midday meal. You will eat, if at all, in the saddle. You might chew on a tough piece of dried meat jerky, tearing at it with your teeth. You might take a long swig of the sour, refreshing kumis from the leather bag slung conveniently over your horse's saddle horn. At night, when darkness makes travel too difficult or dangerous, the entire migration will simply stop wherever it happens to be on the open steppe. You will likely not bother setting up the yurts for just one night. You will simply dismount, hobble your horse or tie its rein to your wrist, and sleep on the cold, hard ground, wrapped tightly in your thick felt cloak, using your saddle as a pillow. The animals will instinctively huddle together for warmth and protection. A few males will take turns standing guard through the night, listening for wolves or raiders. You will sleep lightly, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. You will continue this grueling pattern for perhaps a week, or maybe two, depending on the distance to the new pasture, and the condition of the animals, until your scouts report finding the new place, a location with enough uneaten grass to sustain the herds for a while. Ideally, it will also have a source of water, perhaps a slow-moving frozen stream that can be chopped open, or maybe just an area where you know you can dig down through the frozen ground to find ice that can be melted. Then finally, you will stop. The carts will be carefully unloaded. The familiar bundles of felt and lattice will be unpacked. Working together, the females will swiftly re-erect the yurts, transforming the empty patch of steppe back into your temporary home. The hearth fires will be rekindled, sending smoke curling up into the sky once more. You will be home again, for perhaps a few weeks, and then, inevitably, the cycle will begin anew. This relentless movement is what others call your freedom. To you, it feels more like a constant, cold, exhausting search for your next meal, or rather, for your animal's next meal. The herds are thin. The winter was particularly hard this year. A late blizzard decimated the newborn lambs and foals. Many of the older animals are weak. You need more animals to ensure the survival and prosperity of your family group. You need more wealth, measured primarily in livestock. You cannot simply make more animals appear quickly through breeding. Therefore, you must acquire them through other means. You are sitting by the low dung fire inside the yurt. It is night. You are not talking idly. You are working with intense focus. You are carefully checking your primary bowstring, rubbing animal fat into the twisted fibres to keep it supple and protected from moisture. You are meticulously straightening your supply of reed arrows, warming the shafts gently over the edge of the fire, then carefully bending them straight by sighting along their length, ensuring they will fly true. The mood in the yurt among the adult males is quiet, tense, purposeful. A small group of males is gathering, perhaps summoned by your clan leader or father. 10 of you, maybe fewer. You are the strong ones, the most experienced riders, the deadliest shots. There are no grand patriotic speeches about conquest or glory. There is no elaborate call to arms against a hated enemy. There is just a quiet, shared understanding born of harsh necessity. Your yurt needs more sheep to provide wool and milk. His yurt needs more goats for meat and hides. Herds provide security. You are collectively going on a raid. You are going to pay an unannounced, unwelcome visit to your neighbours to forcibly acquire what you need. Your neighbours, in this instance, might be another nomadic group, just like yourselves, perhaps a clan with whom you have a history of feud or competition over grazing rights. Or, perhaps more frequently, they might be the soft people. The settled farmers who live in permanent mud brick houses and cultivate irrigated fields on the vulnerable edges of the vast steppe, worlds away culturally and economically. You prepare carefully for the expedition. You pack your essential rations, the hard balls of dried cheese, the tough strips of jerky. You select your best, fastest horse, and also choose a strong spare mount to lead alongside, crucial for covering long distances quickly without exhausting your primary horse. You meticulously check your tack, every strap on the saddle, every knot in the bridle. Everything must be in perfect condition. A broken rein or a loose saddle girth during a high-speed chase or a hasty retreat is not an option. It could be fatal. You gather silently with the other chosen males in the pre-dawn darkness, away from the main camp so as not to disturb the herds or alert the entire community unnecessarily. You mount up. Silently, without a word spoken, the small group of dark shapes melts away into the vast, engulfing night of the steppe. You are a horse archer, but now, tonight, you are also a river, a harvester of other people's mobile property, driven by the harsh laws of survival in a land of scarcity. You ride hard for several days, pushing yourselves and your horses relentlessly. You are not following the slow, meandering migration routes. You are riding fast, purposefully, covering immense distances each day, utilizing your knowledge of shortcuts and reliable water sources. You are pushing deep into territory that is not your own, heading towards the fringes where the steppe meets the sown land. You sleep little, catching only brief rests on the cold ground during the darkest hours, always with your horse tethered securely to your wrist, ready to leap up at the slightest sound. You conserve your meagre rations, eating only the bare minimum. Your terrible salty dried cheese balls and strips of leather tough jerky. The tension within the small group builds with each mile covered. Your stomach feels like a cold, tight knot of anticipation and fear. You are approaching the lands of a sedentary farming village, a place of alien mud walls, carefully tended fields, and vulnerable irrigation ditches, a stark contrast to your own world of endless grass. Finally, your scouts, riding ahead, return with word. They have located a suitable target, a moderately prosperous farming village with substantial herds grazing in the nearby pastures outside the main settlement. You see the signs yourself now, a brown smudge of habitation on the distant horizon, perhaps the faint smell of wood smoke carried on the wind, a smell foreign to your dung-fueled world. The unnatural straight lines of irrigated fields carved into the landscape. You halt your group behind a low rise, concealing yourselves as dusk begins to fall. You wait patiently for the deep darkness before dawn. You are not here to conquer the village or take captives. You are here solely to shop, albeit with force. It is planned as a swift smash and grab operation. You are here specifically for the animals, the sheep, the goats, perhaps even some cattle or horses, that the farmers keep, representing their accumulated wealth and sustenance. You are like a wolf pack, silently approaching a vulnerable sheepfold under the cover of darkness. This is not war in the sense of clashing armies. This is economics, steppe style. This is the nomads' brutal but effective method of resource redistribution, their version of a hostile corporate takeover, ensuring their own survival at the expense of their settled neighbours. You are riding back now, heading north, back towards the safety of the deep steppe. You are utterly exhausted. You estimate you have been riding almost continuously for 2 full days and nights, pushing hard to put maximum distance between yourselves and any potential pursuit. You are slumped low in your saddle, barely staying conscious, letting the horse pick its own way over the familiar terrain. Your eyes feel gritty, painfully dry, filled with dust and the sting of profound lack of sleep. But you are not alone. You and the other 9 males from your raiding party are driving a substantial, newly acquired herd of several hundred sheep and goats before you across the plain. The animals are bleating nervously, confused by the forced march, but moving steadily homeward. The raid was successful. The harvest is complete. You have secured the resources your community needs. You have not conquered anyone in a formal sense. You have not taken their land or occupied their village. You have simply restocked your community's mobile pantry with essential livestock. This represents the brutal, cyclical economic reality of your world. The farmers you raided undoubtedly hate you. From their perspective, living in fear of such attacks, you are like demons from the wasteland, agents of chaos and destruction. From your perspective, honed by the precariousness of steppe life, they are simply your garden, a place you periodically go to harvest essential livestock when your own herds fail due to harsh weather or disease. It is not driven by inherent malice or a love of conflict. It is driven by the fundamental imperative of survival in an environment where scarcity is the norm. You know that when you finally arrive home, you will be welcomed as a successful provider. Your family, your entire clan, will eat better this season. Your communal wealth, measured in hooves on the ground, is restored. You are back in the familiar warmth and dimness of the yurt. It is night again. The new animals acquired during the raid have been successfully integrated into your family's existing herds, increasing their size and resilience. Outside, the steppe sun is long gone. The ever-present wind is howling fiercely tonight, a terrifying, lonely sound that seems like a constant scream coming from the very edge of the universe, pressing against the felt walls. But inside the yurt, shielded from the gale, it feels relatively warm and secure. The dung fire in the central hearth is burning brightly, casting flickering shadows on the lattice walls, filling the small space with its distinctive, not entirely unpleasant, acrid, smoky sweet smell. The heavy iron cauldron hangs suspended over the flames, its contents bubbling and steaming. It is filled, as usual, with greasy mutton stew, perhaps prepared tonight from one of the weaker animals culled from the newly acquired herd. You sit wearily on your thick felt mat near the fire. Your back aches intensely from the long days spent hunched over in the saddle. Your legs are sore and stiff. You feel tired down to your very bones. You are given a simple carved wooden bowl. The hot, fatty stew is ladled into it by one of the females. Steam rises, carrying the rich, meaty aroma. It is incredibly hot. It is undeniably greasy. It is intensely salty. You eat hungrily, using only your fingers and your personal knife to pull out chunks of boiled meat and convey them to your mouth. You drink the scalding broth directly from the bowl. It warms your stomach, settles the gnawing hunger. You are past the communal bowl filled with fresh kumis. You lift it and drink deeply. The sour, fizzy tang cuts through the grease of the mutton, refreshing your palate. After the meal, as the fire dies down to glowing embers, someone takes out a morin kur, the traditional horsehead fiddle. It is a simple, long-necked instrument with just 2 strings, usually made of twisted horsehair, and a sound box covered in animal skin. The male begins to play, drawing the horsehair bow across the strings. It is not a fast, cheerful tune designed for dancing. It is a low, droning, profoundly melancholic sound, full of sliding notes and harmonics. It sounds uncannily like the wind howling across the empty steppe. It sounds like the endless sigh of the tall grass. He begins to sing, employing the unique technique of throat singing, producing a deep, vibrating drone and a high, flute-like overtone simultaneously. The sound seems to come not just from his throat, but from the earth itself. He is singing an ancient song about a beloved horse. He is singing about the vastness of the horizon. He is singing about the hardships and the beauty of this life. You listen, leaning back against the yurt wall, feeling the vibrations of the music. You reflect on your existence. You are not a noble warrior clad in shining armor. You are not a world conqueror, though perhaps someday someone from your people might be. You are fundamentally a herder. You are a survivor. You are a highly skilled craftsman, intimately familiar with the horse and the composite bow. Your entire life is defined by a constant, grinding, intensely repetitive cycle determined by the seasons and the needs of your animals. A cycle of enduring cold wind, pervasive smoke, the taste of sour milk, and endless meals of boiled meat. You are inextricably tied to your animals. Their health is your health. You are merely a passenger, part of a family unit, on an endless slow journey across a seemingly infinite sea of grass. You are undeniably tough. You are incredibly resilient. You possess remarkable skills. But you are also, in the end, just a labourer working diligently in the harshest, most demanding office on earth. The horse archer, as a type, was not really a single person, but rather a complex system, a cultural and technological adaptation forged over millennia. He was the direct product of a unique and demanding environment, the Eurasian steppe, that demanded constant mobility in search of pasture and provided almost nothing else besides grass and the animals that could eat it. He was a specialist hunter and warrior, created by the steppe itself, honed by its challenges. His entire culture, his social structure, his values, his diet, his very worldview, everything was built around the central importance of the horse and the herd. These animals represented his home, his food, his transportation, his wealth, his only means of survival, and ultimately his only available method for changing his fortune, often through raiding his neighbours. This highly specialised system, however successful, was not ultimately one of true freedom in the modern sense. It was a system built on absolute, precarious dependence. Dependence on the unpredictable availability of grass. Dependence on the health and endurance of the horse. Dependence on the fluctuating size and security of the herd. And crucially, when the grass failed, due to drought or unusually harsh winters or overgrazing, this entire system, this entire culture of highly skilled mobile labourers, often became something else entirely under pressure. It sometimes coalesced, under strong leadership, into a powerful wave. It became the irresistible force that periodically surged out of the vast steppe and crashed violently against the settled farms and wealthy cities of the surrounding civilizations, China, Persia, Europe. Not necessarily because the horse archers were inherently evil or bloodthirsty, but often simply because they were hungry. Because quite literally, the pasture had run out,